and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing CROWDFUNDED's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, CROWDFUNDED's predecessor at the Bolshevik Women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Indian left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jacobin, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages, All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik Women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as CROWDFUNDED, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Indian left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jargon, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballad or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso. that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Indian left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jacobin, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Cabiese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like or and sharing it on your platforms or even to yourself in an email apparently will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise, the stream where we kind of like to learn all the languages. How's everybody doing on this intermittently rainy Saturday? Now, first of all, let me just get that chat widget where I can see it. Excellent. I'm kind of curious about a video I saw in my recommendations just in the past week. Not quite the same thing we usually do, but still sort of related to things that might be of interest, not just to me. And so let's see, this is a channel I've never heard of called Lady of the Library. And it's called... damn it, that's not what I was trying to do.
I understand.
No, we looked at that yesterday. I'm gonna just drop the link in chat. It's called How to Become an Independent Scholar and Researcher.
Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. You've clicked on this video because you are curious about or interested in engaging with the idea of
I like the lipstick.
Independent research or independent scholarship, and I am here to hopefully enlighten you as to how you can do that.
I would be particularly interested in finding out, first of all, because I kind of already do some of that, how one gets paid to do. I wonder, did she talk about that? Okay, locating academic.
And I want to start off for that by saying that this video is for anyone, regardless of your academic background. It does not matter if you have 0 university degrees behind you, or you are a master's student, or perhaps 20 years out of university and feeling a bit rusty. This video is aimed for everyone and anyone who's interested in engaging in research, what that is about, and how they can do it with the limitations of the world, because let's face it, there are limitations, but hopefully I will teach you how to get around those limitations. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Chinxia and I am a part-time PhD student in classics, and I specialise in contemporary English literature. So
interesting.
All of my advice is based around the fact that I am a humanities student and only have experience in that. Hopefully, maybe I can give some insight to people outside of the field. I'm also based in the UK, however, I will give advice based that you can hopefully adapt to your country and culture accordingly, or
I
give you
mean,
insight.
since there's also an internet, that also helps.
You've never considered before, maybe an option, and hopefully that will prompt you to investigate in your area. So
okay, this sounds interesting.
Independent research or independent scholar is that there is a particular area, a field of interest that you are particularly passionate about and you want to write about, because the idea of research and scholarship is actually to contribute to the field. This is very different from, say, starting off a personal curriculum, which is very much a popular trend online. I've even done a video about how to start your own personal curriculum.
Interesting.
But it's important to emphasise that the difference here is that we're contributing to a field of some kind. And naturally you would think, well, I have to be part of an institution to do that, but you do not have to be. There are caveats, and I will acknowledge that there are benefits to having a university degree when going into independent
One
schools.
can imagine.
Not. But even then, I would say people who've only done an undergraduate are at a greater disadvantage than people who've done a master's, and likewise master students of PhD students, because you do learn different skills at each level. But that does not mean that you are capable of learning those skills. The only
Yeah, I mean, in fact, you can potentially learn a lot of those skills on your own.
benefit to having a degree in these things is that you actually get given the time and tailored advice by a professional to guide you through strengthening those skills which benefit independent scholarship going forward. But that does not mean that you are completely incapable of learning these skills at your own time. You just won't get the one-on-one advice from someone who has 30 years experience in the field.
And unless you're just really lucky and manage to hook up with somebody who's interested in helping you, which can happen.
So I'm going to break this down into different topics. The timestamps are below, and I'm actually going to start with the idea of reading, because I think that's the most important thing when it comes to independent scholarship and things that people don't consider, people sort of take for granted. Because say you want to learn about Egyptology, so you go to your local bookshop and you find a nice penguin book about Egyptology and you use that as your research primer. Now,
I mean, that can be good for starting out. At the very least, it can potentially point you to areas that might be interesting to look into further.
These books, non-fiction books in particular, are very good primers for learning about a subject and seeing if you are interested in it. But it is important to note that commercial non-fiction is very different from academic literature. So
Yes, include on just about every possible level, because for one thing, academic literature tends to be a hell of a lot drier.
They also have different standards of criteria that they have gone through,
Yeah.
and this can be a little bit scary for people because, number one, academic literature is hard to get hold of for free. Not impossible, but hard to get hold of for free. It is also far more expensive when you're in a bookshop or say.
Of course, one thing to know, and probably she's going to talk about this, is a lot of the time, since these academic publishers do not actually pay the authors anything. I mean, the ridiculous amount of money you have to pay in order to get access through the publisher to any kind of academic literature, that isn't going to the authors. If you just email the authors, and usually their contact information is in the article someplace. Usually there's a footnote at the beginning. You can just email them and ask if they have a PDF of it, and a lot of the time they will be happy to provide it.
You're ordering it online. So I'm going to give you a prime example. I have books here from someone who's very famous in our academic field in the classics world, and that is Emily Hauser. Now, Mythica came out, I think, around 2023, maybe 3 years ago now, and this is an example of commercial non-fiction. She is an academic in classics. She teaches at the University of Exeter, but this is not an academic text. So the difference is mainly while she will apply her same academic rigor that she normally does, you can be a bit more relaxed when it comes to commercial non-fiction. You can make generalizations, you can import emotions, or even your own, not biases per se, but yeah, technically a bit of a bias, because you want your audience to engage with the subject in a particular way.
Of course, the thing to know about bias in academic literature, it's not that it's absent. There are methods that are used that are supposed to reduce it, but to a great extent, it's still there.
And that leniency is allowed in commercial non-fiction because that's what sells books. And you're not being disingenuous, but you're using inflated language or emotive language to put forward your information. And whilst Mythica is an example of very good non-fiction text in that she employs archaeology and she cites everything because she's an academic, she doesn't lower her standards, it is very different from her academic writing. An example of that is here. So it's the same author, it's Emily Hauser, but this is How Women Become Poets, a gender...
She already speaks fairly fast, so I'm going to slow this back down.
History of Greek literature. And these two things cover very similar topics, but this is academic writing versus that. But I'm holding the book, so you're probably thinking, well, how will I know, Chintzia? If I'm in a bookshop, how will I know what is academic writing? And the primary thing is...
the citations.
The publisher.
Well,
so
that
this
too.
particular publisher is Princeton University Press, whilst the other one I believe is Doubleday Books. So that is the difference between the two of them. University presses treat their academic publications with the exact same rigor as a peer-reviewed paper. It will go through many layers of academic rigor and critique, with lots of academics looking at it, picking it apart, and giving it an analysis that a non-fiction book will just have potentially a non-academic editor in charge of it, and they are not a specialist in the subject, so therefore they're just doing the general edits. They may
Yeah, I mean, they're mostly going to be editing for readability and stuff like that.
something up now and then if they are confused by something, but the reviewers of an academic text will be academics in the field. They know what they are looking for, and therefore they are sharper at picking things up. So you will have stronger writing in an academic text versus commercial fiction. Now, why is this important? Because
As stronger, it's worth noting, it does not necessarily mean that it's more readable if you're not used to it. You definitely are going to have to get used to it because it involves a lot more technical language. There's a lot more specificity that's brought into it. So, I mean, that is going to be one of the things that you have to, if you're not already used to it, you definitely have to get used to it.
if you want to become an academic scholar, you have to engage with academic literature unless you are analysing said commercial literature. Commercial academic non-fiction would...
Though, at the same time, I mean, if you're doing that, you probably are still going to have to engage with the academic literature, either on the subject or at least the academic literature that does exist on commercial nonfiction.
won't be any of your references or resources. You will certainly not cite them as your argument because they will not be considered valid. So what can you do if you're like, well, Chintzia, academic texts are really hard to find, they're very expensive, or I can't get access to academic articles online? So let me tell you my little workarounds if you are not part of a university and you want to get access to academic literature. But before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor. Squarespace makes it so easy for you to create a beautiful website content, so I can sell anything from blog to business decisions, because I can focus where my traffic is coming from everywhere and tracking day. Ready to launch it, go to squarespace.com. Manchester, many universities have their own university presses. If you sign up for them,
I actually have a book that I translated out of Edinburgh University Press.
you will find out when
Just
their sales
recently.
are, and their sales are really good. You can sometimes get up to 50% off, but usually a minimum of 30% off. And it's not just, say, a Black Friday thing. There are summer sales, there are spring sales. They tend to be quite liberal with their sales. Wait for them. Sign up to their newsletters, find out, follow them on social media, and then purchase your books when those sales arise. Also consider that ebooks are usually much cheaper than...
Also, if you can get them used, I mean, sometimes there's an updated edition and you'll want the more recent edition of some things, but a lot of the time you can actually do fairly well. You can do really well if you get them secondhand.
the physical books. Even then, they're not still cheap. So there was a particular book that I bought recently in the sale, and the physical book cost around, I think, £90, but the ebook cost me £35. So I went for the ebook, but it's certainly not a cheap alternative. Next advice I will give is libraries. Like, I haven't emphasized this enough over all of my videos where I've talked about this.
Yeah.
Please use your libraries. And we're not talking about your small hometown library. We're talking about libraries that have access to academic literature.
Though at the same time, you can start out. If you have a good public library, you can actually, that's often a very good starting point, because they will often have, depending on what your subject is, they'll have works that at the very least cite the academic literature, and then you can go to the academic library with the things that you're looking for. And sometimes they actually have like online resources and things like that they have access to, databases like JSTOR or something like that. And you can get the literature that way, potentially.
Now, from a UK perspective, I can only give this. We have national libraries here. In Scotland, we have the Scottish National Library, and we also have the famed British Library. Membership for the Scottish Library is completely free. You just have to be a local of Scotland. You have to be someone who lives in Scotland. Not only do they have every text published at their access, so you can get and read the book in the library. You can't take books out of the National Library. You have to read them in situ. They also have digital resources like access to Cambridge Core or JSTOR, all of these academic article websites.
Yeah,
and you get access to them for
I have to say that is like one of the things, probably one of the very few things I miss about university was all the databases that I had free access to. You can do so much with those databases, like LexisNexis and JSTOR and stuff like that.
I could spend like days just printing stuff out of there to read.
Absolutely free by being a member of the National Library. It is absolutely insane. This is why I say please support your libraries. The memberships are free. Give them money, fund them, give them an annual little donation as a thank you, because these libraries are doing the academic lord's work. If you do not have access to or you do not live by a national library, then look at your nearest university library. Many university libraries will allow members of the public
Sarah, I wonder if her hand gets cramped holding that. I mean, that's meant to be something that you clip to your clothes so you don't have to hold it like that.
Join them. Now, not for free.
Must get uncomfortable.
Because they have to prioritise their students over this, they usually have a membership. If you are an alumni of the university, you may be allowed to join for free, but even then, sometimes they don't. They will not have the same resources available to you as a national library does. Maybe they do, largely do not, but at least you have access to said libraries, and they will be more than happy to help you whenever they can. If there is a resource that you are trying to hunt down,
yes, they have. One of the things that's very nice about university libraries is they have next level research assistants. You just come up with a list of the things that you're trying to figure out, and they will often have people who, if they may not know about the specific subject, but they certainly know about where to find literature about things.
There are wanting to help you. Librarians are a godsend. They want to help you because they want to showcase that they are worth funding by the bodies that fund them. The more people engage with them and ask for their resources, and the more that they can prove that they help people, the more funding they will get. So utilize your librarians, their resources, pick their little brains and access them. Now, if you are somewhere where you are absolutely nowhere near a library, then the nearest thing I would recommend that you do is obviously purchase potentially what you can in terms of academic papers. It depends again.
I mean, there's also there's a whole lot of very nice academic literature piracy out there. Things like Sci-Hub, for example, very well worth checking out. And archive.org. If you look up the stuff that they have tons of books on there. Oh, I mean, like, the most random titles, stuff that you would have trouble finding anywhere else. I was just looking to see what they had in terms of free books on assembly programming, and one of them was, and they had a PDF from, like, the early 80s on how to program the specific assembly language that was used to write games for the ZX Spectrum.
On dedication to being an independent scholar and what you can afford versus what you think is worth it. Again, a lot of these online websites are available for a membership. So whilst you can get them access for free via a national library such as JSTOR, you can also buy a membership directly to JSTOR. You have to weigh up whether or not that is financially viable for you. Resources like JSTOR to me are worth purchasing. Whilst they are incredibly expensive, I say they are far more an annual subscription than anything like ChatGPT.
Though if you can find a way to get access to them for free,
or Netflix, I think JSTOR.
God, ChatGPT, like, don't pay for fucking ChatGPT. Don't, I mean, especially not as a research resource. See, the nice thing about JSTOR's business model is parasitic as fuck. But at the very least, if you get a citation from JSTOR, if you get a citation from something that you find on JSTOR, chances are it actually exists. ChatGPT just makes shit up.
In this world and other things like that deserve subscriptions far more than those things. So I would say it is worth investing in, depending on how much you want to invest in the idea of independent research and scholarship. It's something you have to consider. The next advice I would give for any independent scholar is to create an account, like a social media account, and follow academics online. I'm talking academics that are in the institution, not people like me. We're talking about academics who work at an institution. Because
yes, and specifically in whatever field you're trying to work in.
The greatest guide you can have when navigating the field of independent research and independent scholarship is someone in the field. Yeah. Most of these scholars online almost exclusively talk about academia and things happening in their field. So this could be a call for paper, call out. This can be conferences. This could be chapters that are being published. It could also...
There are also listservs that you can get hooked up with academic listservs in various fields. Those are worth having too. I mean, some of them are absolute fucking sewers. Like the Women's Studies listserv. I mean, I haven't actually seen much from there. Maybe it's improved. I don't necessarily believe that. But it used to be like all the TERFs would just make life difficult there.
Access articles to things that they have published themselves and they want other people to read it. Follow as many academics within the field as possible who are actually actively part of the academic world, because then you will learn about so many things available to you. Again, conferences, network opportunities, societies.
And I mean, one thing that's also useful in this regard is if there are specific academics whose work you appreciate and you're trying to build on and find out as much about as possible, and you want to actually find other people who are working along the same lines, one shortcut for that is to look at who they're following and who's following them. Because you might find people who are actually working on the exact same stuff, and if you just go and, you know, mass follow those people, you will get a lot more insight.
Associations that you can join, maybe for free, maybe for a low price, you have no idea. Also, if you can get hold of any sort of listserv, this is something that is an email network that you can join it. So in the classics department, for example, we have the classics listserv. This is hosted by, I believe, Liverpool University, and anyone can join it. And what's fantastic is, basically classicists around the world have joined this email, and then they advertise whatever events are happening via said email list. So it's almost like the ultimate email list that you can possibly join everywhere. You will get a conference call in Australia, you will get call for papers for a book being published in a German university but in English language, and you will also have links to...
Also, this is... since a lot of the times the stuff isn't necessarily going to be published in English, depending on what field you're in, this is another good reason to work on acquiring a language.
Any and all conferences that are taking place, and a lot of them take place online, so you can join for free. You don't have to spend a fortune going to a conference in person, you just have to show up. By watching these conferences, you can see how people present papers, what they are all talking about, what they are interested in, and again, even if it's not your particular field, you will see the same names time and time again. Use your opportunity during these online conferences to engage with the academics online and get your name known. This is really important. It's basically free networking for introverts. So you can show your face on camera. I would recommend it. You want to be noticeable by academics, and you're noticeable by asking them good questions at the end of every conference paper, engaging with them, thanking them, and showing up time and time again. This is really important.
Yes, that definitely sounds useful. Okay, so improve your identifying your area of expertise. Where to okay, I'm gonna skip over some stuff. This looks like a very good video, and I mean, she's very good at presenting. But I think we're not gonna watch the whole thing here, because it's mostly just me kind of agreeing and elaborating a little bit. But where to start your journey sounds worthwhile. Let's have a look.
So you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, this is so overwhelming, I don't know where to start. What can you do today that's easy? Today that's easy is to just start. And a nice way of doing that is to establish yourself as a baby person interested in a subject, and you're going to write about it. Start by writing to yourself, but hold yourself.
Yeah, this is not bad. For one thing, just starting to write stuff, not necessarily even for anyone else to read, can be quite useful just to work on your writing and to identify things that might be worth doing.
To high standards. And the best way to do this is via a blog or a newsletter, or both, ideally both. Create yourself a website, ideally Squarespace, we've got a sponsor there, 10% off your website. Create yourself a website and start a blog and a newsletter with what you're interested in. So identify your field and call yourself like a new baby independent scholar. And this is your beginning of your journey. And every week or every 2 weeks, because it can be a lot of work, I don't want to underemphasize how much work this is, maybe every 2 weeks, give yourself a little challenge to write a blog post about something you learned about the academic world of the subject you're interested in.
Yeah, This is definitely this is good advice. I mean, it just gets you into the habit of writing, which is good. If you want to do this, you have to be. I mean, writing about it is going to be important.
So whether that's reading articles from the 1995 about the Gothic body, and this is your introduction to this, seminal text that everyone now talks about. Maybe it's the Mad Woman in the Attic. Maybe it's Simone de Beauvoir. Just something that you're engaging with the first time ever, and write a little blog post about what you learned about it, and challenge yourself to write out your thoughts.
And if you don't have an attic, find somebody else who does. They may have a mad woman in there too.
Casual way, but in an academic mind. So ideally, work alongside some of the books that I recommend with academic writing, read those, and challenge yourself to write blogs in the same style as. And work out what your academic style of writing is, what you like, what you don't like, what you need to fix on, and use a blog just for your own records, or a newsletter that no one follows. Doesn't matter, no one follows, it's fine. Start this off just to challenge yourself to write on a regular basis, and work on your own academic at your own pace, and then keep on top of what people are talking about, conferences, and even use your website or your blog to advertise other conferences that you would be interested in attending, writing about it, helping publicize it. I say all this because when you go to a conference, and you may go in person, or you may,
Okay, so that looked interesting. I think I'm going to watch the whole thing on my own, and I certainly think it seems worth watching in general. I like her channel. It looks very interesting. Let's see what else let's just see what else she does on this channel. So I've never heard of her. She just showed up in my recommendations, and wow, she looks like Sally Field in that freeze frame there. First of all, yeah, I'm gonna subscribe. Let's see what else she's got.
to write on a regular basis, and work.
Okay. The intellectual life and why it's worth fighting for. Sounds good. Procrastination and existential angst. Neat. Historical accuracy and the Odyssey. The weight of unread book. Okay, this looks quite enjoyable actually. It looks like very interesting stuff. Greed and wrath in Dante's Inferno. The rage economy. Dr. Faustus. Okay, I mean, okay, this channel looks really interesting. Okay, cool. So that's that looked interesting. It's not the usual sort of thing we do on here, but it just caught my eye, and I thought that's something I'm interested in doing. I already kind of do bits of that, so might as well have a look and see what she has to say on the subject. So here's another one that showed up in my Rex. It's in Japanese. It's ペラペラ外国人が日本語の疑問を全部ぶつけてみた。全然大丈夫. Okay, and this is like all about the things that are the most confusing about Japanese. It's fluent Japanese speaking foreigners pointing out things that are confusing about Japanese. Okay, so here we go. Oh, yes, and it has English subs. That'll be handy for anyone who does not speak Japanese. Oh, okay, we've got Matt versus Japan here. One of the guys from Yuru Gengo Radio. A bunch of people I don't recognize. Hey, Riveroon, how you doing?
大丈夫。全然美味しい。なぜ肯定表現でも自然に最近だと使われる
Yeah, I mean, see, the thing about Zenzen is it is traditionally very much, it is negative. It means, it's usually used to mean not at all. Like if somebody says, does this bother you? You say, yeah, Zenzen. and it means like not at all.
出るようになったんでしょうか。
全然面白いって非常に面白いですかね。
いや違います。
英語の bring っていうのは日本語に訳すと物か人かによって
釣れる、持つ、持っていく、持ってくる。
その釣れるっていうのか持つっていうのか違うんですけど、この境界線が気になるっていうか、赤ん坊はさっき
Okay. Oh, not too bad. Having an interesting weather day. It's like raining for 5 minutes and then the sun's coming out and probably it's going to rain again. So I'm not even sure whether I'm watering my tomatoes today.
抱えるではなく
It smells
抱く
nice.
だったじゃないですか。でも火事が起きたので、うちの赤ん坊を抱えて避難したとは言えるわけですよね。
一人称ってなんでこんなにあるんですか？
Yes, there are lots of first person pronouns in Japanese.
日本人でも小説とか作品に影響されて自分の一人称をコロコロ変えるやつが
そういう中二病のやつ。
あ、いやでも素敵ですよ。
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about the first person pronouns is people will use different ones depending on the situation as well. I imagine I probably have had one, but I've missed it because I'm in the basement. But it has that wonderful rain smell.
お友達になる男、僕がミスター富士です。そして
大丈夫です。
ロジです。
ニックです。
マヨンです。
マットです。
こうちゃんです。
柳子です。
ニキルです。
Today we have a very special guest.
水野です。お願いします。
Ah, Mizuno, that's his name. That's right, Mizuno-san. Yurugengo Radio Mizuno-san.
ゆる言語
We,
学
friend of the stream, not in completely unbeknownst to him.
ラジオから水野さん来ていただきました。ありがとうございます。第3回目のコラボということでして、
はい。
1作目と2作目どちらも200万回超えております。一応、知らない人いないと思うんですけど、自己紹介というか。
はい、YouTube とポッドキャストで言語学の話をしているチャンネルの、スピーカー、僕はだから言語学好きとして、活動しています。よろしくお願いします。
今日のテーマは水野さんに日本語の謎を聞いてみよう。
Okay.
第3弾ということでリベンジリベンジ。
収録毎回終わったら疲れるんですよ。
でも
Yeah, I can imagine that because the thing is there are the things that you think of about your own language that you notice about what's weird about it. But people who are coming from a completely different linguistic background are going to notice things you never thought about, and you have to sit there in real time thinking about for the first time. That is exhausting. I mean, I've had the experience because I have done language teaching occasionally a long time ago, and people will ask you things and you're like, wait, do we actually do? Yes, we fucking, why do we do that? And then you just have to kind of go into a deep think.
嬉しいんで、はい、いろいろ聞いてください。よろ
お
しくお願
願いし
いしま
ます。前回前々回と水野さんいろんな日本語の謎、日本語ペラペラ外国人たちが投げまくってサンドバッグになると思いきや打ち返してくるっていう、これ何回かやってもうどっちも大盛況でした。見てない人は今すぐ閉じて見てから戻ってきてください。
Okay, skipping ahead, we've had enough intro, I think.
みんなで楽しく日本語の謎を聞いてってお話できたらと思います。それでは Let's find out! さあ
I'm
最初行く人。
はい。
おお。
ちょっと私の方から聞きたい質問としては、全然は本来全然ないという。
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is. In fact, I don't think I've heard it used in the way, so it must be a more recent thing. I don't think I've ever actually heard it used in a positive sense. But apparently now it's being used in a positive sense? なんで？
全然食べられない、全然わかんないのように否定表現と一緒に使われることがよくあるっていうふうな感じで学んだんですけど、現在は全然大丈夫、全然美味しい、全然いける、全然取っていいですよ
全然取っていい？
みたいな感じで肯定表現と一緒に使われることが結構
全然
多いんじゃないかなと思うん
取っていいって
ですよ。
言うんですか、人間は。
ね、なぜその肯定表現でも自然に最近は使われるようになったんでしょうか。
はい、この全然なんですけど、
はい
結論から言うと別に間違いではない、肯定と一緒に使うのは間違いではないっていうのがまあ答えになりますね。
間違いではないとはいえ、あんまりよく使われないんですよ、そういうふうに。
というのも、もともと全然って肯定表現と一緒にそもそも使われてきた歴史があったんですね。はい、でそれがあるタイミング
使われなくなってしまった歴史もあるというわけですね。So apparently it actually did originally used to be used in a positive way as well.
で、例えば辞書とかに全然を現在でその肯定形と一緒に使うケースが俗な表現とかっていう記述が出てきたりし始めたと。だからある時期に急にその全然っていうのは否定表現と一緒にしか使ってはいけないんだっていう言説が出始めた。例えば芥川龍之介の作品とか太宰とかかなとかでも、つまり昔の文豪とかも全然の後に普通に肯定文が来てたりしたので。
Okay. So people just sort of stopped and then they eventually resumed. Interesting.
だから現代の人がなんかやたら気にしてるけど、そもそも全く問題はないっていうのが答えになりますね。
めちゃくちゃ衝撃的。
嬉しい答えすぎる。これまでにコメントで全然大丈夫とか日本語間違ってるから全部報われたい。
言ってる。
Doing it for the comments.
なんか僕らが学んでる本も間違ってるってことになるのかな。まあ一回調べてみたんですけど、全然はネガティブ。
I mean, it sounds like they're out of date more than anything, which is not surprising because, I mean, you put something in a textbook and in a few years people start talking differently.
の文章と使うことが一般的ですみたいな感じで書いてあったし、全然プラスないフォームが来るみたいな感じで、これも間違ってないっていうことって結構ショックなんですね。
そうですね。多分そのじゃあ教科書とかっていうのは僕の感覚だと多分勉強不足でそう書いたというよりは、現在の日本では全然プラス肯定表現を気にする人が多いのだと。それはまあ学習者の方に知ってもらった方が望ましいだろうっていうことで、多分教育的な配慮で書いたで、多分その言語学者とかが全然
Yeah, and they're probably, I mean, a lot of the times with these sorts of textbooks, you also have the factor that people are trying to go with what they find is most common, which is going to be in their experience to a great extent. And also sometimes their own preferences kind of bleed into all of this. And if they don't like zenzen as an affirmative, then they might not use it.
プラス肯定表現ってのはダメだとか間違った表現だとは絶対に言わないと思うっていう感じですかね。
日本人たちがそういうなんか否定表現以外を使うのは正しくないっていう認識になったのは、そういう辞書とかを作る人たちがちょっと
So it's an artifact of lexicography.
そういう記述をしたっていうのが原因ってことですかね。
辞書とかそうだったはずですね。そのスタートでそういうことの表現が出てきたのは、ただ辞書ってすでにそういうふうに思う人の実態がなければ、いきなりそんなこと書き始め。
Yeah, I mean, usually dictionaries, the whole point, the whole process of lexicography is you look at how things are being used and what words are being used and how, in what way they're being used, and then you record that. So it seems like if they, if the dictionary started saying that it was a negative expression, it was because when they were looking it up, they were finding examples of usage that were negative mostly.
ないと思うので、その手前にはおそらく全然プラス何々っていうのが気になるっていう人とかがかなりいたんじゃないかとは思いますけどね。これも新聞記事でその全然がどうしてそういう風な規範意識ができたのかっていう記事とか論文とかがあるんで、ちょっとあれだったらこの動画のリンクとかに
読ませていただ
きみんなそんな意識高いかな。
でもなんかさ、
I mean, it's made me curious.
全然ってどういう意味なのかって考えたらちょっと難しい気がする。例えばなんか全然食べられないとか簡単だけど、でも全然美味しいっていうのは なんか完全に美味しいとかめっちゃ美味しいとはちょっと
部分的に美味しい。美味しいところもあり、全然美味しくないところもある。それは部分的に美味しい。100% 美味しいというのは、全然美味しいってわけ。
ニュアンスが違う気がする。
Although actually thinking about it in Korean, wanjeon is used like this. Sometimes I've heard it used this way, which in Japanese also exists as kanzen, not zenzen.
美味しくないのみたいな、ちょっともしかしたらそうじゃない期待があって、それに対するいや実は期待に反して実は美味しいんだよ。
Maybe this change is because of reality TV, where you have cookery shows and you want to sort of extend it through the ad break and you go, これは全然美味しい and then you cut いい全然美味しいって on people thinking that he's about to say this sucks and actually he's saying 全然美味しい
君すごいね。
それはめっちゃあるね。全然美味しいよって言うと、その相手がまずいだと思ってたものに対して、いやこれ本当美味しいよっていう時に確かに無意識に使ってたかもしれない自分も。
じゃあ辞書引いてみますか。今辞書引いてみましたけど、本来の意味としては否定表現とこうしてあらゆる点から見て
否定とこうしてあらゆる点から見てその否定的な状態が認められる意を表す。
その否定的な状態が認められる意を表すって書いてあるんですね。だから全然変わらないとか全然ダメだっていう例文の説明としてあるんですけど、その後に古くからあった否定表現を伴わず非常にの意味を表す用法も最近多くなったって書いてある。
Okay, interesting. I have an older edition of the Kojian, which is one of the major Japanese dictionaries. Now I'm kind of curious I've never looked up Zanzel in there, but kind of curious what it might say. Does it also acknowledge the possibility of a positive nuance?
最近
でも例で全然面白いって書いてあるんですけど、全然面白いって非常に面白いですかね。
非常に is already an interesting one. Is 非常 literally means 非常 unusual. So you're saying unusually adjective, which we understand as meaning very adjective. 非常に美味しい。常には全くもってまずいもんだよ食えねえよ。でもこの場合は非常に常に美味しくないけれどこの非常な場合には美味しいってわけなんだ。
だから面白くないってと思ってたものに対して、いや全然面白いよって見る価値あるよっていう、そのニュアンスがすごいやっぱ強い俺の中では。
なんかニックさんによく言われるんだけど、ニックさん真似していいですかって言ったら、あ全然大丈夫ですよって言ってなんかこう対応してくれるんだけど。
Which actually I can kind of see why that would make sense. How you would actually end up getting that back in, because. I mean, the most common ways you would say, it's at least some of the most common ways you would respond if you were trying to say something was okay, it would be like, 全然問題ない. They're negative expressions. But you could, and 全然 on its own often does mean, mean not at all. So if somebody said, いや、全然大丈夫. Yeah, then that can come to feel linked, even though initially it was like, somebody said, これ、持ってもらって差し支えないんですか？全然ないですよ。guten Abend, Pizza Borgi.
でもそれは僕がちょっと
Ein neuer Ankömmling, glaube ich.
不安そうな顔で、いやこれ頼みすぎっすよねっていう。なんかそれ
全然大丈夫。全然その頼みすぎという側面を否定して、 続いては大丈夫だという意味ですね。So yeah, I mean, in those sorts of cases, if that is where the usage is, because I have not actually heard this usage. Apparently, it is a recent thing, and I haven't actually heard it. So maybe I will be hearing it at some point. Maybe it started from negate. You know, somebody said, "Would this be a problem?" And you negate that, and then you go on to say, "Oh no, it's okay, 大丈夫." And those things just started to get linked as a result. Interesting.
して「あもう全然いいよ」って答えてくれてるから、さっきジョージが言ってくれたのと同じ感覚ではある。
僕が事例で1個だけ挙げた、まあ、先ほど質問聞いてる時も言ったんですけど、全然撮っていいんですよ。それ写真の方なんですね。これ写真撮っていいですかって聞くときに大体こういう答え言われるよね。全然撮っていいんですよ。でそれはとても撮っていいです。
非常に撮っていいですよ。もう全く意味ねえんだ
よとかめっちゃ撮っていいですよって言わないよね。
Yeah, I mean none of those ways make any sense.
絶対
おっしゃる通りですね。それはそうですね。だから非常にでは解釈できないですもんね。
非常に撮っていい。Yeah, but on the other hand, again, if you think of it in terms of this being phrased as a as a negative question, 写真撮ってはやぶさかなんですかとか、別に写真撮ってはお邪魔になるんですか？Something like that. Would it be a problem if I'm taking pictures and you say, 全然撮っていいですよ. And then that gradually becomes 全然撮っていいとか。
終わった。
いろいろ考えてたんだけど、否定でも例えばこれ良くないっていう時にいや全然良くねえよっていう時も、要は意見の違いっていうか思ってることが合致
全然良くなくない
してないっていう時に使うのもあって、
確かにこれって良くないって聞かれて全然いいは結構変ですもんね。
そう。
But on the other hand, if you say いや全然いいっすよ。Then that makes sense. Yeah, when you have them as separate utterances, and then perhaps in rapid speech, they just gradually became less and less separate.
だからやっぱりそうですね。その先行で与えられた文脈と反対の期待を裏切る時とかに出てくるのはおっしゃる通りだと思いますね。
なんかさっきマットも言ってたと思うその意外性が含まれてるっていうか、それをはらんでいるっていう時に使う。気がする。
それでニケルの写真撮っていいですかって言ったら、全然撮っちゃダメですよっていう。
Yeah, I mean, and this is where the translation actually does not really, where the translation, there are limitations. It's not a bad translation, but the thing is, you actually, in English, it would be totally, people do say, like, if somebody says, is it okay to take pictures? You can absolutely say, you absolutely may not. The nuance, there's no problem there. And you can also just say absolutely, meaning, yes, totally you can. It's fine. But with Zenzen, it does not work quite that way. And the thing is, yeah.
全然撮っちゃダメですよっていう。
次行く人。
英語の bring っていうのは日本語に訳すと、例えば弟を連れてくるとか、本を持ってくるとか、物か人かによってその連れるっていうのか持つっていうのか違うんですけど、なんかこの境界線が気になるっていうか、
いや。でも何の境界線だyeah. Okay, here's the thing. They don't have a verb in Japanese that just means bring. It's compounds. You combine the compound that either means accompanying or carrying with the compound that means to come. 連れてくる。抱えてくる、持ってくる。So the question is, what's the boundary between what you can't, when something stops being tsurete and starts being motte or kakaete? It's a good question.
そのなんか自分で動かない赤ちゃんの時はどうするのかとか、その魚はどうなのかとか、なんかなんで分けてるんだろうなっていう気になったんですけど。
魚を連れてくるっておもろいな。
はい、持ってくると連れてくるってのがどっちもやっぱり bring っていう一語で表せていると。でそれがマットさんの観察では生きているものっぽい時は連れてくるで、生きてなさそうなものの時は持ってくるだと思ったんだけど、境界がわからないっていうことですよね。
そうですね。
はい。でこれは言語学これかなり研究があって。
There's been research on. Yeah, actually, I mean that doesn't surprise me because this is the sort of thing that certain kinds of linguists, certain fields of linguistics really get interested in, is these weird boundaries that we have that everybody can locate when it comes down to, like, every native speaker will fall on one side of the boundary between, tsurete kuru and kakaete kuru, motte kuru. But when you actually ask somebody where is the boundary, it becomes much harder because nobody has really given it any thought. This is just one of many examples of why so much of actual language acquisition is unconscious. Because, like, think about that. Think about the rules. We'll do English. The rules that determine whether somebody is coming or going. Coming and going are the same thing. I mean, it is literally just moving from one place to another place. That's all it is. In fact, neither of them necessarily require from. Or to, for that matter. And we will always fall on one side or the other. People generally have no trouble locating it, native speakers do. But if you sit down and you start to think about how it works, what the actual rule is that is in operation, nobody's ever thought about it really, except linguists. Linguists spend their time thinking about it. Linguists and like comedians, basically. Those are the two groups of people who think about this shit. And when you think about it, you start to notice weird things, where like go and come, which one you use, does not even necessarily indicate your current location or the relative movement that you're doing, whether it is to the place you're at or from the place you're at. Sometimes it can indicate how it is perceived by the people you're talking to. Like, let's say you're at a party and you're gonna go home. You're taking off. You're done for the evening. And so you say to the people who are at the party, yeah, so I think I'm going home now. You then call, you call home to let people know you're going to be coming. You're going to be arriving. And you'd say, I'm coming home, potentially. That would be, I mean, I guess you could also say, I'm going home there. I don't think it would be perceived as wrong. But people will often say, like, I'm coming home. Even though they're talking about going from the place where they are to a place where they're not, which is normally where we would think of go. But we're adopting the perspective, as far as I can tell, this is what's going on. They're adopting the perspective of the people who they are headed to. Or something like that. And nobody thinks about these things really, except for linguists and comedians. And we all get them. And so it doesn't entirely surprise me that there's been a lot of study on this, because figuring out where the boundaries actually are on these things is really actually quite challenging.
概念としては有性性階層っていう、考え方があって、有性性っていうのは生きているっぽさなんてください。それのハイアラキーがあるということで、具体的に言いましょうか。 有生成階層はまず人間が一番、上に来ていて、で次に人間以外の心のある動物が次に来て、
心のある動物
でその後に人間以外の心のない動物、そして植物、そして無生物っていう風に階層になっていて、この人間は絶対有生性があるし、無生物は有生性がないんだけど、この真ん中のものに関しては表現とかによってこういろいろと動くっていうのが、この有生性階層で言われていることで、日本語では連れてくる、持ってくる以外にも動詞で同様のこう言い訳みたいなのがあって、それが例えば両手でこう持つっていう時に抱えると抱くっていう動詞がありますよね。でこれどういうふうに違ってくるのかちょっと考えると、植木鉢をだったらどっちですか？抱えるか抱く。
抱える。
Yeah, because daku, if you were to talk about daku in the case of a plant, it would suggest that you had some sort of a relationship with that plant that went beyond the purely botanical.
抱えるですよね。じゃあ赤ん坊だったら抱くですよね。これも同じようにその持つものの有生性に応じて抱えると抱くっていうのがコロコロとこう変わってくる。で面白いのは、
でもやってる時の気持ちによって違うということもあるんでしょう。I mean, I think there's more to it than just the animacy of the object of the verb there. I think actually part of it is the vibe of the thing. Because daku usually indicates, it's a show of affection to a certain extent. You're holding somebody, and it is an effect, and there's it doesn't have to be, but if you were to say that about a plant, it would.
この有生性っていうのも、例えばこのものは絶対にこっちだっていうふうには決まってるわけじゃなくて、状況によって結構変わると。だから例えば赤ん坊はさっき抱えるではなく抱くだったじゃないですか。でも火事が起きたので、うちの赤ん坊を抱えて避難したとは言えるわけですよね。でこれはなんでかといえば、緊急事態なので子供を物扱いするっていうようなことが想定できる。っていうような感じで、さっきのブリングも。
Well, there's also the fact that in that particular case, coming back to what I was saying about the vibe of the thing, the feeling with which the thing is done, when you're in that sort of emergency situation, the whole purpose is just to pick up the baby and get the hell out of there. It's not, it's not for nestling or snuggling or anything like that. It's you don't want to suffocate, and you would rather the baby didn't either. And so it's just, you're just grabbing them to get the hell out.
状況とかに応じてコロコロ変わっちゃうから、多分マットさんはこう一筋縄でいかなくて難しさを感じたと思うんですけど、根っこにあるのはその生きているっぽいかとか、こう意志を感じるように思うかみたいなところで違ってくるっていう感じですね。
だと日本語のこの前回。
But I mean that is the difference between daku and kakaeru usage. But that isn't. But there's also kakaeru, daku, motsu, and tsureru, which he's also talking about in this context. And there, I think he may have actually said it right the first time, that it is about whether whatever you're bringing or whoever you're bringing is moving on their own steam, or whether you're moving them, whether they're forming an independent, whether they are moving independently of you, or whether you are carrying them to get there.
ちょっと話もあったんですけど、いるとあるのもうこういう有
生性階層。
こういう有生性。That's a fucking tongue twister. こういう有生性階層。
覚えなくていいですよ、このワード。もし研究を知りたかったら、アニマシーって英語では言う。
Okay, it is time to take a little bio break. I will be back in just a few minutes.
Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik Women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jargon, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballad or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the Crowdfunded Translation Project. Share the completed translations Link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question.
And I'm back. That's nice. Right.
アニマシでそう検索とかをすれば結構この辺の研究が出てくるから珍しく英語の方が覚えやすい。
Yeah. This is kind of a callback to, they had on this channel, there was a pera pera gaikokujin, fluent Japanese speaking foreigners talking about the things that are really kind of handy about Japanese, and one of them is the Japanese technical terminology tends to be way easier because you can just look at the kanji, and if you know enough kanji, if you just know sort of the reasonably literate person's number of kanji, you can look at a technical term in Japanese and you will have a pretty good idea what it means. There was a whole, that's right, there was a whole video, I think we actually looked at it on stream a while back, talking about how, actually Japanese technical terminology is really quite easy to follow.
でもそれで言うとこれもちょっと気になってたんですけど、例えば昔話とかだと、おじいちゃんとおばあちゃんがありましたとか、そういうふうに昔の文章とかだと現在だったらいるっていうところあるって言ったりするんですけど、それってなんか
And one thing to note about this, iru versus aru is an animacy distinction. Since we're talking about that, iru is generally in standard Japanese animate, and aru is inanimate. It means just to be or to exist. But the thing about aru and iru is that there are actually regions in Japan where those are traditionally reversed.
昔だからなんかちょっとその階層がその現在と違ってたみたいなことですかね。
2通りの回答があって、1つ目は年配の世代であればあるほど人に対してもあるっていうケースが多いと僕は思っていて、例えば手元にこの日本語表現の歴史っていう本を持っているんですけど、
日本語存在表現の歴史。Okay, this book sounds very interesting. I'm going to just have to put in. I'm going to just have to stick a pin in that and put that search someplace. 日本語存在の歴史書きボード。Okay, just have to put that down there because that's something that sounds like I might like to read it.
手元にたまたま
The history of Japanese expressions relating to existence. There's a whole book on this.
足元見たら
出てきました今急に。例えばこの本の14ページの例文で
参考文献。
授業中に寝ている学生がっていう時っているもあるも両方問題ないっていうふうに書いてあるんですね。でも多分僕とか藤さんとか大二郎さんの世代って授業中に寝てる学生があるって言います？
絶対言わないですよ。
言わないです。
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't have thought that either. いるに決まってるだろう。
だから多分日本人も世代間によって結構差があって、昔々おじいさんとおばあさんがありましたって僕らの世代からするとまあかなり妙というか言わないですよね。多分
言わないです。もう人権がっていう気持ちになります。
これってもさっき言って申し訳ないんだけど、
はいはい、
状況だからあるんじゃないの？寝てる学生がいるっていう状況だから、
でも状況を形容してる文章じゃないでしょ。
ある。で昔々おじいちゃんおばあちゃんがいるっていう状況だからある。想像それつくんだよこれは。
なるほど。
それありえない。
僕の感覚はそれとちょっと違う気がしていて、あるが出てくる時ってのはさっき言ったアニマシー生きてるらしさを強く感じにくい時は出しやすいと思っていて、例えば希望者があれば前に出てきてくださいみたいな言い方だったら
OK その時あると
まあいけるかなと僕は思うんですけど、それはいないかもと思っている状況だったらあるでも言ってもいいと思うんです。でもなんかすでに希望者がいてその状態で希望者があればっていうのはなんか僕の中ではちょっと引っかかって、その時はまあ希望者がいればって言いそうだなと。だからいそう人
Okay, that is interesting. So what he's saying is he would distinguish between aru and iru here. Aru again being normally the inanimate verb to be versus iru, which is for animate objects that are being. Based on, in that particular sentence, whether he expects somebody to, raise their hand and say they're interested or not.
ぽさがもうなんか頭の中でありそうだったら結構いるが出てくるのかなという気がしますけどね。
2つ目の理由があるって言ってたんだけど、それは何ですかね。
はい、
気になってきた。
まさにそれとこうつながってくるんですけど、今その日本語の存在を表す動詞っていうのはあるといるっていう2系統あって、生き物っぽい時にはいるが出てくるって話でしたけど、このいるってもともと古文でどういう意味で習ったかというと、藤井さんどうぞ。
いやお願いします。大二郎さ さん助けて。
もうやったじゃない勘弁してくださいよもう行っちゃって
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, in classical, yeah. How does it work in the classics? Don't feel like I ever saw Iru in like classical Japanese.
今富士に聞いてるんで。
It's always on.
大二郎君のこと聞かない。
先生に怒られてるよ。
いるっていうのは中世とかでは座るっていう動詞だったんですね。
Oh, wait a second. Gozaimasu. Yeah. Because goza is literally honorific plus the seat of something. Gozaimasu is, yeah. だから、
いても立ってもいられないっていう時のいるです。いても立ってもいられないっていうのは座ってても立っててもそんな風にこう落ち着かないっていうことなので、こういう座るの意味だったんですもともと。だから日本語のその存在表現っていうのはもともとある1系統だったんですけど、そのスロットにいるがこう入ってきたんですよね。だからその昔のテキストとかを読むとあるが出てくるのはあるしかない。
Yeah, that's right.
なるほど。そういう歴史的な経緯ってのが2番目の理由。
So it started out, okay. So iru started out as meaning to sit, and then you had like gozaimasu, which is like sitting in one's honorific seat, which is an honorific polite way of expressing to be. And I guess maybe from there they started to switch from into an animacy.
昔話とかもしかしたらその成立がすんごい古いとかだとしたらあるって書かれてるのはまあそういうものだろうなって思ったという感じですね。
でもそれだったらよかった。なんかおじいちゃんおばあちゃんだからちょっと余命いくばくもなくてちょっと存在感が薄れてきて物扱いみたいなじゃないだろうなと思ってたんですけど、よかったです。
叩くなら彼を叩く。
もともとでもいるあるって漢字もたくさんあるじゃないですか。本当はね、いるって普通に居住の居って書くじゃないですか。
はい。
いるっていうか、であるも普通に有するの有、あるもあるし、存在のあれのあるもあるし、それが今ひらがな表記なんだけども、ね、漢字で表記してる人ほとんどね見ないと思うんだけども、もともと漢字があって意味それで使い分けてたっていうこともあったんじゃないかなと思いますけどね。
どうですかね。ちょっとこれも僕パッとわからないんですけど、あるの意味とかは確かにいろいろ多様で、例えば所有を表したりすることもできるんですね。私にはまあ姉が一人あるとか弟が一人あるとかっていう言い方が僕ら世代ではあんまりはないかもですけど、一応言えるとされているし、まあ僕も意味はわかるので、これ所有だからこうちょっと存在とは違いますけど、そういう時だったら例えばなんか漢字が使い分けられてるみたいなことがあるかもしれないですね。
ちなみに居座るの意はこの場合はどっちなんですか。その座るって意味かぶってるんですか。居座る
でもございますって
変態的質問で変態を困らせてる。
ちょっと書室の念を調べますね。
座る。
おもろ。よう思いつくねそんなの。
I have to say I appreciate the conscientiousness.
居座るは1520年頃に成立した本ではもう出てきてますけど、その頃もういるは存在の意味も座るの意味もさせたんじゃないかな。だからわかんないです。
That would also be when there was this starting to be more of a shift from ni gozaru to de gozaru, which is not something I just randomly know off the head. I was watching Gunshikambe, and it sort of got to me that everybody says ni gozaru when I would have expected de gozaru. And I looked it up, and apparently it's because ni de used to not really exist as a particle. It was like nite and ni, and so de sort of came a little bit later as the form for to be. I mean, not that ni or de is the form to be. It's a particle that was used as part of expressing it.
そもそも座るって意味じゃないですもんね。別に居座っててもそれはもう立っても居座ってるかもしれない。
あ、そうですね。確かに座ってる必要ないもんな。
でもしかしたら本当は座るって意味なのに立ってる時にも使えるっていう。
うん、確かにね。ああ、それは面白いですね。考えたことなかった。
日本語でいうリビングの今ってどっち？いる間だと思ったからリビングだと思ってたけど。座ってる場所って考え
One of the first homonyms that most non-native speakers learn in Japanese is that ima, depending on how you write it, can either be now or it can be a living room.
よく座るの意味のいるが残ってる表現ってのはいても立ってもいられないと立ち居振る舞いのいが、まあその座るっていう意味が残ってるんだ。
And in shogi, there's ibisha. Ibisha means that the hisha, which is like a little bit like a rook, but it does a lot of unrook-like things because shogi gives pieces powers that they just don't have in chess. Ibisha means that the hisha stays put, as opposed to furibisha, which means that the hisha gets moved in one way or another. It is one of the classifications of the different openings in shogi.
説明がされるんですけど、今はちょっと新キャラですね。これからだからE の字見つけたら、あ、これもしかしたら座るの意味残ってるかもって思いながら生活すると、
絶対そうします。
すっごい今レベル低いこと言っていい？
はい、どうぞ。
レベル低いけどごめんね。ちょっとブリングの話に戻るんだけど、これ疑問とかじゃなくて素敵だなと思った話で、その持ってくるものだったら、これ人だったら連れてくるって話あったじゃん。で、だからポエティックに使う時って結構連れてくるで使うなと思って、虹が青空連れてきたとかって言い方するよ。
Yeah, like it came along. It actually was walking separately, but along for the ride.
人っぽく擬人化しているからそういう言い方するんだなと思って。
See, there is an example right there of where Japanese technical terms are just so much easier than English ones. Gijinka. It's not actually a term I've ever seen before. I know what it is. It means anthropomorphize. This gi here means to sort of make something appear to be something. Jin is person, and ka is used, it means change, and as a suffix it indicates like ization. So gijinka is anthropomorphized, but in Japanese it's three kanji that basically anyone who's reasonably literate knows, and they can immediately understand it even without knowing all of the Greek that you have to know in order for anthropomorphize to immediately make sense to you.
日本語美しい。
レベル低くないよ。
でもさ、思うんだけど言語学習でさ、よくさ、ブリングは人だったら連れていく、物だったら、持ってくって、ルールだと思って覚えちゃうと、そこでその先の表現がなくなっちゃうけど、本当の意味を理解すれば、下の撮影ちょっと。
Yeah, I mean, this is a good example actually of why comprehensible input is going to be particularly helpful as compared to things like the grammar translation method and stuff like that. Because if you just get used to the fact that you get used to the vibe of tsurete kuru versus motte kuru, that tsurete either, for the most part is going to be used for things that are moving on their own steam, for animate beings that you're not carrying, then, and you hear it actually used for inanimate objects, you will get the vibe and you will understand this is a thing that can be done in certain circumstances, and get the meaning without being confused by a rule that comes from the world of translation.
と持ってくわとか、ちょっとそのまた面白いようにジョークとかに使えたりするから、なんかそこでルールだからダメなんだって思いすぎないようにするといいかなって思います。
Yeah, because the reality is the rules are way more, you know, there are rules. There are things that determine whether a sentence makes sense in a language or not. But they're virtually always more complicated than the rules that you're taught. And so if you're learning this stuff from input, if you're learning this stuff from comprehensible input, you're more likely to be developing a robust understanding of the real rule that most native speakers don't even think about, but always apply unconsciously and correctly. There's much less that you're going to have to shed as you advance in the language.
いるあるでした。次行く人。
はい。
お。
一人称ってなんでこんなにあるんですか？
Yes, Japanese does have lots of them.
Hi.
I mean, and the thing is, like, they're the ones that you will encounter in modern day Japanese. Let's see, watashi, watakushi, atashi, atai, boku, ore, それから他には自分、本人、本館 and there are still more. But then when you get into, if you start watching like old-timey period pieces, like again, I've been watching Gunshi Kanbe, which is quite good. It's on Netflix. It's worth checking out if you like things to do with samurai and strategists and like family drama. It's got a little bit of all of it, and it's set in the 1600s with historical figures like Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Kuroda Kanbe, etc. But you start to notice there are all sorts of, first person and other pronouns that simply nobody uses, like soregashi is a first person pronoun, for example. And then you have things like okata-sama, which is a second person pronoun that nobody uses anymore. And you discover more of these the more time you spend reading stuff that is reading or watching stuff that is in language that is no longer used, especially. And there's sessha.
たくさんあるのよやっぱり。でもそれってなんでなんだろうって今までなんかあんま自分で疑問にも思ったことがなかった。
あ、それはレベル高いね。
いやなんか。
I'm actually rather curious about the answer to this as well. Because this is a thing that you see a fair bit of in like East Asian languages in general. Like Vietnamese has tons of pronouns. It's all very relational. Korean doesn't have so many as Japanese does. But yeah, I mean, in the region, you have a lot of very pronoun-intensive languages.
他の言語だから違うの当たり前っていう感覚だから、でも今考えてみたら確かになんでなんだろうと思って。
なるほど。
水野さんに聞いてみたいと思いました。
はい。今ヤナさんが一人称って言ったのは例えばどういうようなものがありますか？
私、僕、俺、私、もうあたい、拙者とか言って。
拙者。Sessha, okay, for people who are not familiar with it, there is a specific first-person pronoun for samurai, and that is sessha. You will basically only ever hear this in period pieces. If you walked around calling yourself sessha, well, I mean, if you were visibly not Japanese, people will probably be like, okay, just another person. Just weird ass foreigner thing. It would be very. People would understand you, I'm sure, but there would be weirdness associated with it.
はいはい。
わし。
わし。
Yeah, washi.
よくこの
Yeah, washi, which is basically like that is a first person pronoun that like old dudes use. It is specifically like it is the official pronoun of like old guys.
これを認証代名詞って皆さん言うんですけど、これがね言語学的にはちょっと怪しい。
Yeah, that is true because they do actually. What he's talking about is a lot of these things, they're used as pronouns, but there are other things other than that.
すごくややこしくなるんですけど、この認証という概念が非常に難しいというか、言語学者にとってはややこしい問題で、日本語にはそういう英語的な認証というものはそもそもないのだって考えてもらった方が多分分かりやすい。というのも、例えば主語が私の時は動詞には3単元の S をつけなきゃいけないみたいなルールって別に日本語にないじゃないですか。それからわしっていうんだったら B 動詞、じゃあ存在を表す動詞はいるでもあるでもなくこれじゃなきゃダメだみたいなことって起きてないですよね。だから
yeah, uchi. Like, yeah, I mean, that's another one. Uchi, which is, like, that is a first person, used as a first person pronoun, especially by, like, women in Kyoto.
認証代名詞愛っていうのが私以外にうちとか俺みたいなのがないのは単純にそういう動詞との結びつきとか動詞に対する影響力みたいなのが日本語と全然違うんですよね。って考えるとそういう認証のパワーが強い言語っていうのはあくまでその世界を見渡した中でこう欧米にはいっぱいあるかもしれないけど中国語とかだって別に全然そんなことない。
Yeah, Chinese also has quite a few of them.
し、アジア見渡したらそういう言語はむしろ特殊と言えるかもしれない。から自分のことを指す自称詞とか言いますけど、その自称詞がいっぱいあるっていうのは全然日本語に限った特徴でもないからなんでって言われると難しいけど、そういうのって結構あるよっていうのが一つの回答。
That is, yeah, I mean, one of the really complicated things about Vietnamese, for example, is that all of the pronouns that you use, like include I, you, he, she, all of them, are very much relative. They're relational between, like, your, among other things, like the relative age of you and the person you're talking about. So the word, for example, the things that you might use to say I, you can also use to say you under certain, like, ein can be I, it can be you, depending on who you are and who you're talking to. Japanese is actually less complicated in this regard than some other languages in the overall region.
そちらがおかしいと。
そんなことない。どっちもいいよっていう話です。
チャンネル染まりすぎて殴り返すの慣れてる。誰も殴ってなかったのに。
でも日本語以外にあるのかな、こんないっぱい。
ベトナム語。
でもそう、ここにいる国の人たちは。
私ちょっと思ったのが、なんかヒンディ語でも、あんまり使われてないけど映画とかで自分のことを一般的はメっていうの。私のことを。
Wait, oh, that's interesting. I did not actually. That is not something that is commonly used.
とか言うんですけど、アプンとかって言ってる人とかもいて、今はちょっと使ってたらダサいなとかっていうふうに言われてるけど、でもあるっちゃある。
アプン、that must be related to apni. Like, okay, in Hindi there is a possessive pronoun that it means like one's own. Apni, apna. We don't have anything like it in English. A lot of Indo-European languages other than Hindi don't have it, but the Slavic languages do. It is the equivalent, more roughly, of svoi in Russian, for example. And apun, if apun must be where apna comes from, and apni, apne.
みたいな感じでこれしかないっていうのはないと思う。
ちなみにそのアプンは、さっきのマーとかと違ってどういうようなニュアンスが？
アプンってちょっとヤンキーっぽい言い方。なんかちょっとなんか昔の人が使ってた言い方。
That's interesting because in Japanese one of the common ways you will hear like gangsters, for example, talking. I mean, depending on who they're talking to, it will sometimes be jibun, which also happens to be the common way for people to speak in other highly hierarchical settings, like the army, for example. And apun, I'm guessing, relate. If it does indeed relate to apna, apni, apne, then that would actually tie them together in that way, sort of.
で今使ってるんだったらちょっとまあヤンキーっぽい人だなみたいな感じで今だいたい「め」とか言うんですよ、で多分中国もありますよね。
Jun, like Qing. That is the first person pronoun that only the emperor used. These days, the emperor does not. Actually, now he just says watakushi. But, like, it used to be that Qing was used.
まあいっぱいありますよ。
もちろん。
身分。
身分。なんか2、3個教えてくれる？
我で普通に私。はい。朕は皇帝様が自分のことを呼ぶとき。
漢字も同じだ。
チームありますね。
もう一個だ女性王様のまあ嫁さんは臣妾で言うんだよ。
And that second, that che there, that is warawa. That exists in Japanese too. Like it is also very. I mean, it is extremely old-timey. No, you will not hear people say it unless it is a jidaigeki. But warawa, using that kanji, that che, it also exists.
そう、まあ、これは日本語多分ないかもしれないんですけど。
あるぞ。
あるんですよ。だからまあ俺は単純にこのぐらいしか知らないんですけど、調べたらいっぱい出てくる。
一般人はみんなウォーだけど、その本当に
アンもある。
アンってどういう字なの？
And an uses the same kanji as ore.
俺の俺です。もうちょっと大雑把な人とか、おじいさんとか使いがちですね。
それは女性も使いますか？
男っぽい女は使います。
ああ、そうなんですね。
たまにいるもんね、日本人の女の子でもね、自分のこと俺って言ってる。一歩一個いるよね。
北側な女性はちょっとね、使いがち。
僕も割と自分のアイデンティティにリンクしてるってこと？
まあでも昔からなんですけどね、そうなんでだろうな。そう。
あと一個ヒンディー語で今ちょっとこうちゃんの話を聞いてて思ったのが、ヒンディー語一般的に北では我々はハマレって言うんですよ。私たちって意味なんですけど、でも違う地域に行けば自分のこと、私のことを我々ハマレって言ったりとか。
Yeah, in fact, actually, there's the movie Lagan, which is really one of the best things Bollywood ever put out. It is an amazing movie. Absolutely check it out if you haven't. I think Netflix has it. If not, I'm sure you can find it on a certain maritime themed website. It's a great movie. But so the way that Amir Khan's character is always talking, he does certain things. He instead of kya, he says ka. And instead of me, which is I, he says hum, which, the hum and hamara, this is what reminded me of it, which, you know, in conventional modern Hindi would be we, but it is used as I also, and I'm noticing all these various characteristics, and so I decided to look it up. It's like, what language, what regional variant of Hindi, what is this exactly that, Bhuvan, which is Amir Khan's character, is speaking, and it turned out that the writers decided they wanted to avoid this being a regional story. This village that it's set in, Champanir, is supposed to be a place that could have been anywhere in India, really. Well, anywhere in India where they speak, an Indo-European language anyway. So they decided, in order to avoid it skewing regionally, they would just make up a dialect, essentially. And so they came up with this dialect where people say hum for I and ka instead of kya.
まあそれは多分文化とかいろいろ歴史とか背景があるんだろうなと思ったけど、まあ結構ね、一人称って言ってもいろいろあるなって。
それがしのような
中国とヒンディー語とかって日本語みたいに主語は省ける仕組みなの？絶対「を」って言わなきゃいけないとか「め」って言わなきゃいけない、英語みたいに言わないと文章成立してないみたいな感じなのか。
考えたことないです。
もう愛にも愛にだけでいける？
今はいけるけど、俺はずっと愛にで送るんですよ。いろんな女性に。 でもあれは正しくないんですよ。若者のスラングみたいな感じで愛になんだけど。
Which could be English influence.
正式
Which is the funny thing is that is an example of a situation in English where you can just leave out, you just say love you. And people will understand that the I is implied, even though English is not a language that actually is supposed to do that.
文章はを愛にですから。
そうそう。じゃあ英語って言うと英語も love you とか一応言えるから。
まあヒンディ語は言えるね。今考えたらその今から行くよっていう感じで私は今から行くよって言わなくていい。
Yeah. Although Hindi also has verb conjugations that allow for more of that because the information is included elsewhere.
基本的になんか日本語って結構省けるからこそ言った時のわざわざ言った感じって結構あったりするじゃん。そのなんか私は行かないですみたいな。あ、行かないですと私は行かないですってもうニュアンスまで変わるじゃん。英語ってどっちも I'm not going or I'm not going みたいなその抑揚で変えられるけど、まあだから毎回言ってるわけじゃないから時々しか使わないからバリエーションが発生するのかなって思ったけど、まあだから英語は愛しかないし愛って言わないともう喋れないっていう。
それいいよね。なんか日本語は一人称
でも一人称だけじゃなく二人称三人称もいっぱいあるんですよ。Yeah, I did not even think about it the first time I watched it, but then I watched it again because I love Amir Khan and I love cricket and it's just such a good movie. And I later realized it has the one from the L Word, the English woman who has the gambling issues in it as well, which is kind of neat. And I just kind of got bugged by it, like, okay, what's he speaking here? Because it sounds like Hindi. I understand a lot of it because there's a lot of Hindi in it, but it does things that Hindi does not. And I just decided, okay, I got bugged by it enough that I remembered to look it up, unlike a lot of things that I want to look up. And I looked it up, and it's like, yeah, they just made up a dialect for him.
その種類がたくさんあるけど、どれを使うかで悩んじゃうことがやっぱりツイートするときとか、私っていうとちょっとなんか硬いから、僕っていうとなんかちょっと中学生かなとか、俺はちょっととか、のもどかしさが英語とか。
Yeah, this is true because I mean, this is there's all sorts of things like this with Japanese when you're on Twitter, because like if you're making a general statement, for example, you will think about it. It's not just the pronouns; it's like the verb forms and stuff too. You make a general statement in a tweet that is not like a reply or anything like that, and you will phrase it one way. Of course, which way is it though? It depends entirely on the kind of vibe you're going for. There is so much vibe configuration that you can do in Japanese that it becomes very complicated in a lot of times.
ないから逆にそこはなんかもう愛で考えることが一個少ないっていう。だからね、どっちもね、ちょっと面白い。
まさに今言おうと思ったんですけど、僕も最近日本語の動画作り始めたら、私っていう癖が結構あって、社会人として日本の会社で働いてたから、でコメントで日本人めっちゃ言ってて、ニケルもっと日本人っぽく話したいなら絶対に僕が俺にしてくださいとかって言われてて、そんな私って言っちゃいけなかったんだみたいな感じで、そんな
ことないけど、
これから気をつけますって返事して。
でも確かになんか僕と俺の間ぐらいの一人称ちょっと欲しい時あるよね。
ボレ。
ああ、わかるわかる。
みんな拙者でいきましょう。
俺ちょうどこの私、僕、俺がマジで完璧なバランスいいなと思ってて。
ワボレ。
俺基本ずっと俺なんだけど、ただやっぱもちろん普通に会社で働いてた時はお客様の前では私か私。
Yeah, and お客様 is an example because お客様 can be a pronoun. The thing about Japanese, the thing about languages like this is everything's a pronoun. お客様 is a pronoun essentially. It is used the way we would use pronouns in English anyway. お客様 means like guest or customer. It is a very honorific way of saying it.
でちゃんと丁寧な言葉使ってて、で社内の人間と喋るときは僕使ってたんですよ。でも普段ね、僕ってマジで使うことなくて基本。でもなんとなく会社にいるときに、自分の身内じゃないんだけど同じ会社の人間だから普通に僕ってなんとなく無意識に使ってて、なんて便利な言語だと思って、俺すごいこのバランス良くて、相手との距離感だったりとか自分の身分だったりとか、今の状況とかによって使い分けられるのがすごい日本語めちゃくちゃおもろいなってずっとなんか意識が。
Yeah, I mean, it's like the difference between when you use creative mode on a DSLR camera and you switch to manual. Because like creative mode does when it comes to like pronouns and things like that, English is very much like creative mode. It makes a lot of choices for you. It actually kind of neutralizes certain things. Like I mean, as long as you're like correctly gendering a person, the third person pronouns you use for them mean nothing. It's just a placeholder for other things in the language. So there's no configuring going on. But you switch over in Japanese, it's on manual. So you can adjust the exposure, you can adjust the ISO, you can play around with the aperture and do all these things. And so on the one hand, you have a huge amount of control of exactly the vibe you're going for. And yet on the other hand, you have a huge amount of control over the vibe you're going for, and now you have to think about every single one of these fucking things.
発音で面白い話1個このちょっと言いたいんだけど、お願いします。水野さんにこうシェアしたいんだけど、俺っていう言葉って小学生の時は日本人よく俺っていう俺さだけど大人になるといや俺ってなるのね。だけど
Interesting. That is a thing I had kind of noticed but never picked up on exactly why that was going on.
僕は子供の頃は僕って言うんだけど、大人になると僕はって僕ってなったりする。だから俺のイントネーションと僕のイントネーションが子供の頃から大人になるにつれて逆転するっていうか、これって面白いなっていう。
ずっと単純に間違ってる人いるなって言ってた。
Okay. This I just noticed how long this video. I'm gonna drop the link here, and we're gonna look for some other stuff. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing because it's a whole hour video. We're not gonna manage to watch it anyway. See what other stuff we've got in here. Sorry about that. Okay. This is a channel I've never heard of. It showed up in my recs, like a lot of things I've never heard of and that I end up looking at on here. This is by Liam is in Hobonichi, and it's called How I Studied Japanese. And it'd be interesting to look at. I have no idea whether Liam is in Hobonichi speaks Japanese well enough that his advice will be good. I have absolutely no idea who he is. But when people talk about these things, interesting topics of conversation almost always emerge in one way or another. So let's have a look. This is Liam is in Hobonichi talking about how he studied Japanese.
To study Japanese or any other language, this should be a little light introduction. So this has become like my Japanese learning quote. So in the context, it would be これは時計です more efficient. I found Yotsubato really helpful. Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, his pronunciation. So it sounds good so far.
It's a lot of fun. You should try it.
日本人から見ても相当日本語がうまいリアム、結構短期間で習得したみたいだけど、どんな風にして学んだの？リアムが Ask any native speaker and they'll tell you Liam's Japanese is seriously what any native speaker. Like if you just go to random people in Japan and you ask them about Liam, everybody knows. You know, it's like he's like Jimothy. He's like the Japan's Jimothy. Apparently.
Hello, so today we're going to be looking at how I studied Japanese, and for anybody that's trying to study Japanese or any other language for that matter, this should be a little light introduction
Now I'm trying to place his accent when he's speaking English.
To how you can go around about doing that, and what worked for me, and some different books that I quite enjoyed and made a big impact on my language learning experience. So at the moment I have the top level of the JLPT, so N1, and I've been living in Japan now for about 3 or 4 years, so I've never really had much problems living here. And I started studying.
Interesting, because there are sort of non-native-y sounding things he does in English, actually. I mean, I'm like trying to place his accent because it isn't straightforward. I assumed with Liam it was either that kind of skews statistically like British or Irish. He definitely doesn't sound Irish, and I'm not sure if he has like an accent I'm having a hell of a time placing.
When I was already in Japan, I did try it once when I was in the UK, but I actually failed it my first time, and then I tried it again like 2 years later, and managed to pass. In total, I'd say about 5 or 6 years, to be honest.
Okay. I would say, I mean, if 5 years and he has like N1 level, I mean, that we're leaving aside the question of how well he speaks, although his pronunciation sounded really good. I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, in terms of speed.
Do like really, really rudimentary, like basic practicing for quite a while, but it was like watching like a 5-minute YouTube video where they would teach like one grammar thing. But to be honest, it didn't really have any impact. I couldn't speak anything, and I was lucky enough to come to Japan multiple times when I was younger. But for those times as well, I mainly just spoke
Southern England, maybe?
And I never really tried speaking Japanese. So it wasn't until like maybe my final year of uni where I probably tried to start studying, and I dedicated a considerable amount of my time to it. And after that, it was about 5 years, let's say. So today I'm wearing a dotera. Nobody actually knew what the word was, so we had to do a bunch of last-minute Googling. But it's basically a padded kimono. And why I'm wearing it is because when I was studying Japanese, basically, I tried to wake up at like 6 a.m. and then I would...
Okay. So, okay, here we go. How did he learn? This is what we really want to talk about.
So the way I learned Japanese was with something called AJAP, which is where you...
Oh, okay, so we're talking very input heavy. I mean, this is very much, I mean, you could say very analogous to ALG type methods in the sense that you're just like completely bombarding yourself with Japanese input.
Basically all Japanese all of the time, and you basically you're constantly reading it or listening to it or watching it or whatever, speaking it. But the idea is that you just force lots of input into your brain. The more input, the better. And actually, this can be kind of difficult for people, so I wouldn't recommend it.
I mean, it can be difficult to actually, starting out in particular can be difficult just because you have to find stuff that is going to be on your level enough that you can actually benefit from it. That can be a bit challenging if you don't already have a good source of it.
Everybody, but the actual thing when it comes to learning a language is that anybody can use, and that I think, books and things should be they should have it written in books, but you kind of don't see it often. It's a very simple equation. It's basically, so it's just I plus 1.
Oh, well, okay, he's read Crashin. Is I plus 1 is something I say quite a lot on this channel. What that refers to is input that is comprehensible and has structures in it that are just beyond your linguistic level, but that you can understand for other reasons. Yes, this is okay.
It's basically,
I mean, not just words, though, structures, because it's like, which is word, I mean, it's all made up of words, it's language, but it is the combinations of words in the order they go in as well, in particular situations to express certain things.
I means all of the words that you can comprehend and understand. And
it's like, he has, there are bits of, part of the time, he sounds like almost German, is what's throwing me off as I try to make sense out of his accent.
And then the plus 1 is one word that you don't understand.
Okay, he's not explaining this very well. It is, what plus 1 means, it isn't one word that you don't understand. It is one level higher. It is just barely beyond what your current capability is. But you can understand it because of the context and visual cues or whatever. So he's not explaining it very well, but this is absolutely the concept that is the motor of all of this.
An entire language is to just find these sentences of I plus 1, where you know all of the sentence plus one word that you don't understand, as often as possible. And then when you do that...
Okay, I will say, if you... Even though that is not really a correct definition of what Crashin meant by this, if you were to do this, you probably would not go far wrong. You probably would not do badly if you were to interpret it the way he is interpreting it here. I think you probably would do okay. But I do like to be precise about these things.
It goes into your brain and you kind of work out through context what that extra word means. So the next time you just find another plus one and you just do that as much as possible, and that's learning a language. The reason why you listen to Japanese all of the time is so that you increase your chance of finding a sentence like this. So if you can like use an app and like use flashcards or things like that, you can find this more like 効率的
effectively.
More efficient. And that's basically what I did for a couple of years. So I would use flashcards. I was using like, we'll put a screenshot of how many flashcards I looked at each
Holy shit, that is rather a lot.
Day. And
although I will say, one thing that Crashin's research tells us is that actually specifically trying to tailor input for one specific person's I plus one is not particularly more effective. Yeah, there's no sign that there's enough of an advantage to actually bother doing that. Just looking at a whole lot of input that you do that you mostly comprehend is already going to be at least as effective. Because what you're trying to do is develop associations. Associations between words and concepts. And so the more of that stuff you're doing with like authentic sources, native speakers, whether it's for learners or not for learners, the more of that you're doing, the more you're strengthening those associations.
Often I did it. You can get an idea of what it takes to learn Japanese in a very short amount of time. But basically, if you did this, anybody can do it. So it's not about age or person or drive or anything like that.
I mean, I would say drive does come into it a bit because you do have to dedicate some time and energy to doing this. I mean, the more driven you are, the more compelling you find anything that's in Japanese, the better you will do, because it will just hold your attention more. So I would not say that drive does not enter into it. The more, I would say absolutely, you will probably get more results if you combine, strong motivation and the right method. If you have the right method and you don't really have much motivation, you might still get there, but it'll probably take longer. It'll be more of a pain in the ass because you're really not feeling it. But if you're strongly motivated and you've got good methodology, and I mean what he's describing here on, broadly speaking, is, he's absolutely on the right track with methodologically, then, that's obviously going to be a much stronger combination.
It's got nothing to do with how smart you are. It's just a matter of finding this sentences that you kind of understand with one word where you don't understand, and just repeating that infinitely. Let's just do an infinite. And now everybody can learn languages. To explain it in a way that everybody can understand, let's take a really simple これは時計です. So that means this is a clock. But let's say you don't know what 時計 means, but you know what これは is. So in the context, it would be これは時計です. And so you know that the thing that you didn't understand is likely the thing that they're holding, being a clock. And
and then you can actually, let's say that one of the things that a person doesn't know is mo. And then, so having shown this particular clock, これは時計です, you put that down, and then you point to a wristwatch. You say, これも時計です. And so now mo has been introduced in a situation in which mo makes sense, even though you've never heard mo before, and you can start to work out that this means like also and even and stuff like that.
Through that, if you repeat this process loads and loads and loads of times, you can understand all kinds of different words and gradually build up your comprehension, and then you can read the newspaper or watch a movie or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean that is the underlying mechanism. There are lots of ways to. This is something, we were talking about this when we're looking at that Nick video yesterday, but he just identified the underlying mechanism. You have the thing you know, and you have the thing you don't, but other things that are present allow you to understand the thing you don't, even though you've never heard the word before. And then you can just kind of keep on doing that. Now, there are lots of ways you can leverage that particular mechanism that allows your brain to do this thing. But that mechanism has to be there, or you're not going to get anywhere.
Finding these kind of contexts and these sentences, these +1 sentences, you have to read content that you can comprehend or you understand, and so things that are to your level.
It helps if you care about it too.
I recommend finding different books that you enjoy reading for your current level. For me, when I first started Japanese learning, I found Yotsubato really helpful because it's very simple Japanese. And but this is the latest volume, but I obviously started with volume 1. It's just like a bunch of kids and getting into.
Oh, that is linguistically, because literally, okay, that is, as a translator, that's a very challenging little teaser line there. Nokoru no wa kyoku ka omoide ka. This kyoku and omoide both mean memory. They both, literally would translate that as memory. So, the immediate sort of instinct would be, if you're going literally, would be, is what remains a memory or a memory? And that doesn't really work, because clearly these are different things, and they are indeed different things. And you have to understand. Yeah, I first of all, if I were doing a marketing teaser in English for this, I would not use that, precisely because we don't have a verb that gives you that kind of, that makes that distinction. We don't have a noun that makes that distinction through types of memories. how would we say? I mean, because like kyoku is just like a record of, like a mental record of a fact, of a thing that happened. It's just like this happened, and omoide indicates there's some emotional connection to it.
Fun little adventures and little shenanigans and all little episodes, so it doesn't really follow on. I mean, there isn't like any kind of plot. It's just her growing up, and so it's really helpful because you can find the parent is teaching the kid how to act properly in Japanese society. So you actually learn lots of different kind of societal rules about Japan.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, having never heard of this until now, I can see also the advantage there as well is that the Japanese is going to be gradually getting more complicated as well, getting more complex, because it's going to start out because the main character that you're following is a child growing up, and so it's going to start out with very simple Japanese and progress
in a very easy way without even realizing that's what you're doing. And she speaks only in hiragana because she's like a baby. That's really helpful for when you're learning, because you might not be familiar with much kanji. But as she gets older and the stories get a little bit more complex, in like the latest issue, it's still very easy to understand, but it gets slowly more difficult as you improve in your Japanese by reading it as well, which is kind of nice. And yeah, I had a lot of fun reading it. I recommend it to everybody as they're like starting manga.
It sounds good.
Basically, the idea behind how
Okay, this is how he stays motivated and keeps studying. Interesting.
I learned Japanese was this equation, and then you try to find different ways of finding those sentences, but you have to continue doing it. You have to keep trying and going out of your way to find these things.
And it helps to be very motivated to do that, which is where it really helps to have sources of input that you actually would want to watch anyway.
And do it, because obviously in the UK there is not much Japanese to find walking around.
Well, in London you can do pretty well. I mean, that's one of the really handy things about London. It's ridiculously expensive, but pretty much every linguistic community in the world, every like cultural, ethno-linguistic community in the world has a community in London. You can, there's a Chilean community in London. There's a Peruvian. There's absolutely. I mean, there are Japanese bookstores in London. There, you can definitely find people to talk with in Japan in Japanese in London, but not necessarily in the rest of Britain. And if you're living in bloody, Basingstoke or something like that, you're probably not going to find anyone. But if you're in the Greater London area, you're in with a chance. I mean, there's a whole Korean community in North London as well.
Learning how to continue, or actually try to every day just like residually build up a skill, was very challenging, because it's not something that I had ever really done before. And for that, I recommend this book here, Tsuzukeru Chikara っていう本. And that was really, really helpful for me to try to work out how to like actually improve on something every single day. It was like a nice way to learn that. And I think the person who made AJAP famous also recommends that book. So that was probably might be something that you've heard before. With this book as well, there's an audio book. So even if you can't read, you can listen to it at the same time as reading. And
Ghost Winter Courtyard.
So you can follow along easier. So when I first started learning and trying to read, it's pretty overwhelming because there's so much kanji that you can't read. And so when it came to reading full books, it was helpful to listen and then like move with my finger along the page.
One thing I would recommend here, one way to deal with this that's quite helpful is ebooks. Japanese Kindle books. If you don't have a lot of kanji, if you set them up so you're getting the Japanese dictionary when you hover over or you hold down your finger on a particular word, the advantage of this is that if you're not sure of the reading of a particular word, a particular kanji, a lot of the time it will work really well because it will pull up the definition and the definition will include the kanji. It isn't 100% because sometimes there's more than one reading. And if there's more than one reading, it will go to whatever the first instance of the kanji is. And then you won't necessarily get the correct reading. But you can do pretty well with it.
Age, and that kept me concentrated, like focused on the thing that I was trying to read as well, and helped improve my reading speed as well as comprehension.
And while he is looking at the power to continue, it is time for me to have the power to wrap up and look into doing something about dinner. Thank you to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And if you did, I do hope that you'll come back and see us again. I will actually be out of town for a couple of weeks coming up. Let me see, let me just look at the dates. I pull up my calendar and thing. Okay, so like next weekend and the weekend after that, I'm going to be out of town, so I'll be taking a little bit of a hiatus, but I will be coming back after that. So I look forward to seeing you then. Have a good evening.